Hello, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to be discussing some books that I would like to give a second chance. For most of these books, I didn't dislike them, I didn't love them. I think I gave most of them 3 stars when I read them, but I will say almost all of these I listened to on audio. And I have this thing with audiobooks that sometimes I don't know what it is. They don't pull me in. I'm not as engaged as I could be. And then I just feel like the book was so so. And it's happened a few times with me where if I felt so so about the book, or sometimes I'll even put it down because like I'm not loving it, and then I pick it up physically, I love it so much more. And I think it happened to me when I read Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I actually technically like soft DNF'd it the first time I tried to read it. I was listening to it on audio, and I was just like, you know what, I'm bored and I don't care. But when I picked it up physically, I flew through it. I loved it. I finished it, I think, in like 2 days, and it's one of my favorite books of all time. And it's happened many times before. So when that happens, I feel like I need to give those books a second shot to see if I actually really feel very about them, or if it's something that I think I could love. And with a lot of these, they have so much hype and so much praise that I personally feel like I 100% should like them more than I did. So let's start with our first book, and that is Jade City by Fonda Lee, the first book in the Greenbone saga. I read this, I think, 2 years ago now. I gave the first book 3 stars, like I said. And I don't know. I feel like this should have worked so much more for me. It is an urban fantasy, mafia esque, involving the Call family. And I feel like this should have been something I was obsessed with. And so many people said this book was so good. They were obsessed with it. They loved it. And even people who felt like kind of lukewarm about the first book, kind of like I did, they said they loved the second book and they were obsessed and like committed. And it's one of their favorite series of all time now. So I definitely think I want to reread Jade City, and I want to reread it physically. And I feel like then I'll love it. Then it'll really work for me. I feel like it'll click because I wasn't disliking it by any means, but I do feel like I was just kind of listening to the audiobook very passively and like not really follow along. And the audiobook was really good, but I just think if I do go the audiobook route as well, I might try and immersively read, so I'll follow along as I read with the book, just so I make sure that I'm really focused and locked in, because I do think this book has the capacity, and the series has the capacity to be a favorite. The next book, somewhat similar to the first one, is She Who Became the Sun. Now, I did technically, I think, immersively read this one, but so many people love this book. So I feel like maybe I'm just like, I have FOMO because I'm like, I felt kind of about it. So I feel like, I don't know, I want to reread this. And also, I want to read it because I did read this, I think, around when it came out, which was probably, I don't know, 3, 4 years ago. So I don't really remember much from it. And I want to finish the series out. It's only a duology, so it's 2 books. That's a quick, easy read. But I don't really remember anything from this book. And I feel like if I reread it, one, I'll be prepared for the second book, and hopefully I'll like it even more this second time around. Uh, the only thing I remember, like the big plot points, and I remember the fisting scene that definitely came out of nowhere. But other than that, I don't really remember much. And I'm hoping I'll really like this one, because this is one that I will say I've heard very mixed things on. Some people really love it, some people felt very about it. But I'm going to give it a second shot, and hopefully I like it much more the second time. This next book is going to get some of you mad at me. I can already see the comments now. I want to preface this by saying I did not dislike this book. I enjoyed it, but I don't feel like I enjoyed it as much as other people do, similar to all these other books, and I want to love it. That's why I want to give it a second shot. And that is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, the first book in the Mistborn trilogy. I know, you're shocked, you're appalled that I didn't love this as much on my first read. I'm as shocked as you are. I I will say I read this book when I was still kind of new to adult fantasy and like getting into adult fantasy, and I don't feel like I was really in the right headspace and mind space when I was reading it. And one small thing was that there's a romance in here that when I read it the first time around, I didn't love it. It in fact was getting on my nerves every time these two would talk about how much they loved each other. And when I started the second book, they kept talking about how much they loved each other, and it was irritating me even more. It's just dumb. But I think if I reread this, I will have a better appreciation for it. I'll probably like it more. And I'm hoping I'll like the romance this time around. It won't irritate me as much. Especially because, like, obviously I know everything that happened in the book. I'll know what's coming. So hopefully this will work for me on a reread. And I do plan on reading the rest of the series. Even if I still feel kind of lukewarm about this one, I am still going to read the second book and the third book, especially because I've heard there's like a really big twist in the second book, and that's something that like hooked a lot of people that felt maybe kind of so about the rest of the series. They said the second book is really what got them. So I will finish this series even if I feel kind of about this second book on my second reread. All right, our next book I think is technically a sci-fi, which is Gideon the Ninth. And this one, it did a disservice because going into this book, I definitely thought it was a high fantasy. And I figured out as I was listening to the audiobook that it was sci-fi. So I definitely think that hindered my enjoyment because I was wanting a high fantasy, but I was reading a sci-fi. And I don't know, it's same thing. I was listening to the audiobook. I felt kind of about it. It wasn't exactly what I wanted to read at the time, and I was kind of just feel iffy about it. But I'm gonna keep saying it. So many people love this book. So many people love this series, and I feel like it should work for me. Like lesbian necromancers in space sounds like my vibe. Sounds like something I should love. I feel like I should be eating this up, but I didn't. And I think there's 3 books out now, maybe 4. I can't remember. But I do want to continue, especially with how this one ended. I really do want to see how that plays out in the rest of the series and how that plays out in the next book. So I do want to give this one a second chance. And this is another one that I will definitely try to read physically, or maybe I'll immersively read. We'll see how I feel in the moment. Now, the next 2 series we're going to talk about, I did D and F, their first books. These are the only 2 on the list that I did DNF and give up on, but I want to give them a second shot. And the first one is From Blood and Ash. This, I also was listening to the audiobook. But I don't know. There were things that were happening that I was like, I just simply don't care. And I wasn't liking some things, but I think like you weren't supposed to like them, but like I think they were just getting on my nerves more than they really should have. But I've heard so many people talk about the series and say they love it, and I think what's kept me from wanting to really give this a second shot and go into it again is that it seems like most people really love this first book, but all the subsequent book in the series no one really likes, and the quality seems to just go down book by book by book. And I think there's a lot of books in the series. I don't even know how many. And there's also that prequel series that ties in that you're supposed to kind of jump back and forth between. So I would like to give this a shot. I would like to read this and see if maybe I'll really like it this second go around. And even a book talker, Mariana Reeds, I think she was kind of in the same situation where she was hearing a lot of negativity about this series, and she just gave it a shot, and she really loved this first book, and I think she even liked the sequels. I don't think she's finished, but she said she really enjoyed it. So she said, if you're thinking about it, give it a shot. So here I am. I'm going to give this series a shot. I do own the first 3 books in these editions, which I think are Illumicate or Fairy Loot. I'm not sure. But if I like it enough, I'll continue on past the original first 3. All right, our last book is The Wolf of Oren-Yaru, which is the first book in the Chronicles of the Bitch Queen series. Now, this series I had such high hopes for because the title is The Wolf of Oren-Yaru. The series is The Chronicles of the Bitch Queen. I feel like that sets you up to think that, oh, this main character, she's going to be ruthless. She's going to be a bitch because they're known as the wolves. She's the bitch queen. And she just came off so whiny and so annoying. And it was really giving off like lovesick puppy of Oren-Yaru and not wolf of Oren-Yaru. And it was a lot of telling and not showing. It was a lot of her saying, because she's in this land where a lot of people aren't like showing her any respect, and she keeps saying like, oh, if we were in Oren-Yaru they would have their tongues removed. If they were in Oren-Yaru this would never stand. And I'm like, girl, show that. Don't tell me that, oh, if we were over here you'd be punishing these people, whatever, but because you're here you're just gonna take it. And that was what was annoying me. I was like, you're not showing me that she's the bitch queen. You're not showing that she's a wolf of Oren-Yaru. If anything, all of these people are treating her like shit and she's just taking it. And that was really hindering my enjoyment of the book. And I think, yeah, I got 50% of the way through. So I was a decent chunk of the way into the book, and I had to put it down because even when I was reading reviews, it didn't seem like it was going to get better. But I do really want to continue this series, mainly because I bought all 3 books before I'd even read the first one, which is my own fault. But like even the titles of the books really make me want to read it, because like The Wolf of Orinyaru, the second one is The Ikasar Falcon, and the last one is The Dragon of Jin Sayang. And I don't know what it is about those titles, but they really just make me want to read the book. They really want me to like enjoy the series, and I want to enjoy this. I'm determined to enjoy this. So I think even if I feel iffy about this first book, I'm still gonna probably push myself to read the second and third. One, because I own them, and two, because I just really want to like it. I do. All right, those are all of the fantasy series that I would like to give a second chance. Hopefully, maybe sometime this year, but knowing me, I'm not great at sticking to saying I want to finish things. And also, I really do need to try and prioritize finishing series I've already started. But who knows? Maybe I'll start one of these sometime soon and let you guys know. And if there's any series you think I need to prioritize and I need to get to first, let me know in the comments. But that is all for today's video. If you liked it, please like, share, subscribe if you want, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!